Hi guys. What we're going to do today is, and I've uploaded this PSD file onto our eCourseware, so if you would like to use this croquis as we go forward, you certainly can. I know like the first time out the gate, I know you guys were supposed to do one and it was due today, and sometimes that isn't always the best one, and it takes practice just like anything else. So if you would like to use this one, this is the one that we used in our Fashion Illustration 1 class. So it's just your simple walking pose, but feel free if you would like to, change the sizes of this or something along these lines. And so saying that, what I would like to do is kind of go over a few things maybe from your beginning class. I'm going to click on the layer, which is the layer of the croquis. And if you remember from using layer masks down here, if I add a layer mask to this, what I can do is it'll automatically go to black and white, which I was on anyway, but if you had a color, it would. And then you grab your brush, which is B, and I'm going to go with my opacity and my flow. Since I was working earlier, you'll notice that mine was 90% and 70, and I want to take that back to 100. So remember, the shortcut to change the opacity is whatever the number is. So if you want it to be 60%, hit 6. And if you want it to be 30%, hit 3. And you notice what's happening right here. I want it to be 100%, so I'm going to hit 0, and it goes to 100%. And then the same thing for your flow. If you want it to be 80%, hit Shift 8, or Shift 5 makes it 50. I also want this to be 100, so on the flow, I'm going to hit Shift 0, and I'm ready to go. And so now what I'm going to do is hit Z and zoom in. And what you can do with a layer mask is you work non-destructively, which is what I really love. Because maybe in another croquis, maybe you want someone with more of a square jaw. Maybe you want this one to be more like, like your triangle face or something along those lines. And so what I'm going to do is grab my brush and hit my bracket on the right side. Remember, that will make your brush larger. And then I'm going to go up here, and you can do a hard round or a hard soft. So I'm going to do a soft round on this one and then hit enter. And then what I can do is on this, let me reverse these. On this, I'll paint over this. And what it does is it works like an eraser, but I'm on a mask. So the original is actually under there. And then let's say, oops, I messed up. All you have to do, well, obviously with a mess up like that, you could just hit Command Z. But if you go back and reverse these, you can paint things back in again. So if you would like to make her jaw, and I'm going to hit these arrows and reverse it back since I have my layer mask. Make sure you're on your layer mask too when you're on this layer. So make sure you're not on the image, but you're on the layer. And you can kind of trim this away. And don't worry about losing the black dark line on it. You can always come back and add that later when we do flesh and skin, things along those lines. So if there are certain things you would like to do to kind of like change it up a little bit, feel free. But use this croquis as something that is a basis for yours. Also too, remember if you hit Command 0, it'll take you back to full screen. I might change your arm here just because I like a skinnier arm. So, whatever you would like. But, basically she's ready to roll for you. Give her the tweaks that you want to give her. And then, you can kind of go forward from that. And so the first thing that we're going to talk about are doing the facial features. And there's a real easy way to do that. And so what I've done here is I have brought in an image, and let's zoom in. And it's of Angelina Jolie. Lovely, right? And what I've also done is I put it on multiply, and I've lowered the opacity so that way when I draw on the layer on top of it, I can actually see what I'm drawing and not under. So what ends up happening here, if it is at full opacity, you've got that. And so if I lower the opacity down a little, then that way I can see the face that I've drawn. And also if you don't, it'll be on normal. So you can still see through if you do the opacity. So either way is fine, but I just go ahead and do a multiply, and then I can see through if my opacity happened to be a little higher than what it is. So as long as you can see through this and draw on top and be able to see the line that you're drawing, however you do it is fine, okay? But what's gonna happen too is when I brought this image in, let me zoom out a little. when I brought this image in, you know, it was a different size. So transform it. And like I said, if it's this size, when you bring it in, then just scale it down till it fits into the face that you're looking for. You can also, once you draw the face or draw the eyes, you can adjust their size individually too. So let's just say there, let me go back to what I had. So remember, when you bring in an image of somebody's face, make certain that you draw it to the scale of the actual croquis that you're working on. Otherwise, if you draw it at a large scale, then you squish it down to fit on a smaller croquis, it's just going to be a really dark blob. You're not going to be able to see any details. So make certain that that is what you do. Once you've done that, then what you're going to do is you're going to add another layer. So you go right down here and add another layer and title it Eye. And I've got that. I'm going to grab my brush. So I'm going to hit B. And I'm going to go up here, and there are a few brushes that you can use, general brushes. If you go down a little bit, there's also a Ultimate Pencil Hard that comes with Photoshop. I know I've talked to you guys about this before. There are wonderful brushes out on the internet that mimic graphite pencils that are better than what comes with Photoshop, but it's, you know, it's up to you if you want to go and find some. If not, these work perfectly well as well. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Z and I'm going to zoom in. It's kind of creepy looking, huh? So here we go. And I'm going to zoom in really close so I can get the detail I want. Now I'm going to give you a heads up. You know, we are not symmetrical. So think about that. If you were to take this half of her face and flip it, she wouldn't look like the same person. And if you were to just take this and cut it and then flip this side over here, because notice her eyes are shaped a little differently. I mean, and that's just, all of us are like this, all of us. So what I'm noticing, and so keep an eye out when you choose someone, what I'm noticing is that this eye goes in further towards the nose than this eye, right? So if you're going to choose this eye to draw first, what I did, and I already have one kind of drawn underneath here, is that I drew it, but I just moved the pupil over a little more centered. And the reason I did that, because I know ahead of time, I'm going to draw this eye and then I'm going to flip it horizontal to the other side. And if you flip it horizontal to the other side and the eye tends to go more towards the nose, the eyes look crossed, okay? And if that does happen, it's an easy fix. I mean, you can use your lasso tool and just get in here and grab what you've drawn and nudge it over, and then, you know, do a little tweaking with your pencil or your, you know, your brush, and you're fine. But I just want you to be aware of that. And it's just like, it's completely natural. So I've already drawn this eye and I wanted to bring that up for you. And I wanted you to see it. So if that happens, but you know, when you start out and you're like, well, this eye is more centered, then just draw this eye instead of this eye. But what we're going to do is we're just going to take the eye, we're going to flip it over, and then that way you don't have to draw the eye twice, okay? So zooming in, oops, let's do Z, get my brush, there we go, get back to this. And I'm not gonna worry too much about all the makeup right now. We'll do that when we do flesh and skin. I will do a little bit of shadowing. So I'm gonna hit B, and my brush is big and blobby. So I'm gonna go up here and hit my bracket key on the left and make it small. I do not want my opacity up at 100 and my flow is at 38. Also, I'm going to switch these to black, and then I'm going to open black, and I'm probably going to go a little more gray. I don't want to go black yet. That'll be in some details, maybe a little bit like that. Okay, and now that I have that, I'm going to go opacity. Maybe I'm going to start with a 70. So I hit 7 and maybe a flow of 60. So I'm going to hit Shift 6. And you notice that's my flow and that's my opacity for my brush. So I'm going to pick up my brush, and then I'm going to come in on my new eye level, and I'm just going to start tracing over. And what I'm going to make sure, and this is why you want your image underneath to have a low opacity down here, the eye of Angelina, you want to knock that image down so you can actually see your drawing that you're doing. What I would like for you to do is to hit this icon, and this pops up. And I would like you to hit something called Shape Dynamics, and it probably is going to be set to off. What I would like for you to do is hit pin pressure. And so what that'll do is, as you actually draw a line with your brush, it'll fade away. So let me make my brush a little bigger with the bracket. Come in here and see, now that my brush is bigger, you can actually see it. The brush was so small, you couldn't. But without the pen pressure, I want you to see what happens. It is more bloggy and blocky. This brush in particular is a pencil brush, so therefore it was built to already kind of do that. But you can make it even thinner like that if you would like. Since we're doing eyelashes and they're wispy, that's something to think about. Also, if you, go here. If you decide just to use your soft round brush, then it's going to be a necessity. So you're going to hit that icon again. So see what's happening right here? Now what you're going to do is hit Shape Dynamics, check it, and then highlight it if it doesn't, and then watch what happens down at the bottom. Pen pressure, and it just fades away as a wisp. So we'll just use this brush, why not, okay? And so I've got this going, and it's too big for me, so I'm going to knock it down a little to get started. And so if you can start to see, and it's all about pen pressure. So if you're using a Wacom tablet, well, I'm actually drawing on my Cintiq right now, you'll see that, watch this, the eyelashes just wisp away, right? And so this is something, and I'm not going to make you sit here and watch me draw all these individually, because I'll pause it and then come back and then show you where I am. But just to get us started, like this. Most importantly, eyelashes fade, and they also change directions a little bit. Ladies, for you guys who wear the false ones, you've noticed if you look at your lashes, especially some of these newer ones, and they're all layered and 3D, but the lashes shoot in different directions a little bit, don't they? And that just makes them look or appear to be more natural. But so as you start doing some of the smaller lashes, they're going to change direction as well. They don't go up like this, okay? There is no need for that. So I'm gonna hit Command Z. Now, if it has something to do with your style or what you're drawing, then maybe it might be something that you come back and do. But for your basic eyelash, I'm just gonna do something along these lines. Then, like I said, just kind of come in and do this. And then just lightly, really lightly, that's the whole thing about this. And you notice I'm at opacity 7, flow 60, and I have my pen or my brush set to pen pressure. So if I barely touch my pad, your tablet that you're working on, or your pad, then now look, I'm going to press down a little harder, and then I'm going to let it fade, and I'm going to lift up my pen pressure, and it makes all the difference in terms of believability. There's a few eyelashes down here, so let me get those. And we'll just start filling in, like I said, here a little bit, and maybe a little bit more through here. We've got this going on, we've got the crease of the eye back here, and you have the eyebrow as well. We'll get to that, and then I'm barely going to push down, just light opacity through here. I'm going to change my opacity right here to about 20%. I'm going to hit 2, and that way just give a little bit of shadow, real light shadow at the top part of the eye, right on the white, because that will help in the believability of this. So we'll do a little bit like that. Now I'm going to make the brush a little bigger, and I'm going to add a little bit of shadow, and let me go back, and I'm going to hit Shift 2. So now my flow and my opacity have been like held back. They're really low now, right? So then I'm going to come in and kind of do some of that shadow work, and I may even do 10 and 10, and just give a little bit of shadow through here. And this is what, remember, I always talk about in class. Don't draw a heavy line down the nose. This form is made through shadow. So I'm going to make my brush a little smaller, put a little shadow under the eye here, little shadow over here, and kind of just work my way around. And then I'm thinking, okay, this here, let me turn off that image underneath, check it out. Okay, this to me is kind of a little too much right now. Go over here, and right here, this little drop, you'll see it's the blur tool, and grab the blur tool, and you can go up here, and the strength is at 50. Maybe I want to blur it at 70%, so I'm going to hit 7. See how it changed? And then I can come in and really smooth those shadows out a little. Okay, and right now they look really dark because there's nothing else to compare them to except for the white of this artboard. So don't be fearful of that. And I'm going to turn this back on. And so you continue and continue to build up until you get the eye where you want it. So let me turn this eye off, and I kind of did another one already. So I've got that one done. And so here is what I was talking about. Hit B. Let me go get on that layer. Bring down my brush tool. Notice how instead of doing the eye right here, I moved it up over here. Let's say I flip it and it's still too close to the inside of the eye. This is the beauty of Photoshop, guys. You just grab the lasso tool and carefully just lasso that part of the eye. Hit Command T, which is your transform shortcut, and then use your arrow. And then scoot it over a little, and it's like, okay, hit return, and to get rid of the marching ants, remember, hit Command D, which means deselect. And so you have your eye there. I may have to like come back in and maybe erase a little bit. My magic eraser is still on, so let me go to my erase tool. It's at 100 and 100. That's a little harsh. I'm gonna go to 50 and 50 and slowly erase this little shadow part if I had some in there. The color you're seeing, remember, you can't erase that because that is actually the image underneath. So there's my eye that I've drawn, and I would actually, like I said, there's still more detail I would do to this, but I'm going to zoom out like this, and so now you can see the eye. So now what you do is to duplicate a layer, remember really quickly, Command J. And what that does is it puts another layer right on top of itself, and you notice how the eye got darker. That is also a trick if you want heavy makeup one time and maybe not the next. So maybe on this next one you want her eye to be a lot heavier. Then what you could do is Command J and just leave it put, and then I would erase away the shadow. Let me do this, and this would be 100 and 100. Zoom in. No, the shadow's way too much. So I've got this eye, and then I've duplicated it and put it on top. Really smoky eye, right? I'm gonna hit my eraser, make my pen bigger, and I'm gonna erase the shadow work on the top one, and then it'll reveal that light shadow from underneath. And then that's a way to get a smoky eye if you wanted to, and then you could combine those layers, but that's not what we're doing. But let me go back and do this. What I'm gonna do now is kind of zoom out a little and hit V for selection, and I'm on my iCopy. Oops, I was not on my iCopy, was I? Cancel. Let me go up here, and so I've got my iCopy 2, and I'm going to move it over here. And clearly you can't leave it like that because that's two left eyes, right? So what I'm going to do is hit Command T. Once again, it'll select it and transform it. Go to Edit, Transform, and then I'm going to flip horizontal. And now I always like to kind of like play around with moving it a little because we aren't symmetrical, and if you just move it a little, you know, then that way you can kind of have it up. But if you would like your eyes to be a little more slanted, you certainly could. If you like a bigger eye, because I do that actually, is like I'll draw these and I think the eyes are too small. I like bigger eyes, not huge, but, and then so what I'll do is just go over here and maybe make it a little bigger and delightful. Let me move it maybe a little bit over here this way and hit OK. And then what I'm going to do is go back to my first eye and do the same thing, Command T. I'm going to make that a little bigger since I did that one as well. And just a little bit. And hit that, and there you go. So that is a quick way to do eyes. And then so the next video I will show you how to do noses, lips, and then we'll work on hair. And once we get the face kind of set up, then like I said, we'll start having different hairs. We'll do skin tones, different kind of skin tones. They will all be on different layers, so you can turn them on and off as you need them, and you can create different types of croquis just from this one. But what I would like to do before I sign out of this video is, once again, I don't want the shadow exactly the same on both sides. So I'm going to grab the eraser again. It is at 100 and 100 up here. from the last time I used it. So I'm gonna go and do maybe 20, 20 and take it, and I wanna soften this. Get rid of some of this. Maybe I'll bring that up to 40 a little bit on the opacity. And it would help if I was on the right layer. And then you notice I'm not going to have as harsh of a shadow over here that I do over there. Or maybe I don't want as harsh as a shadow over there now. I mean, that's kind of up to you at this point. And then if you have a softer eraser, you can kind of do that. And so what we're going to do next is we're going to come back in after you've gotten the eyes done. Then you're going to come back in and you're going to do the nose and the mouth. And so I'm going to show you how to do that without harsh lines and using shadow. And then also too, if I'm taking a look, you know, I've tilted the eyes and I'm thinking, well, her eyebrow over here is a little higher than this one over here. Once again, we're in Photoshop. This is easy stuff. I'm going to take that eyebrow, take that, hit Command T. Let me get on the eye level. Copy. And hit, oops, I hit Command T. Let me go back to where we were. Okay, Command T, and you can just lift the eyebrow. Oh, if it was only that easy in life, right? So there we go. That, hit Command D to deselect all the marching ants. And you can come in and clean up some of this stuff. And so if you wanted to come in and add more shadow, you could kind of lightly erase it away and come back and reapply it if you would like. So zoom in, something like this. Maybe grab my eraser tool. It's at 40 and 20, that's fine. So I'll come in and lightly just kind of erase that away, and then eventually I'll come back in and make more shadow, okay? So Command 0 to get it held back to school, and look, we're starting to build our croquis, okay? So I will see you in the next video, and we will work on noses and lips.